All right, we're going to get started today. Today I have Chris Griswold with me from eXp Realty. Welcome
That's me.
on board here today, Chris. How you
Thank
making
you.
out?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
Good. All right, we want to get rolling today. What we're going to do is we're going to be presenting this information. I get a lot of questions, Chris as well. You know what we have to do to get started to buy our home. What are the things that we need to take in consideration? And that's what we want to do today. We want to just be able to present some information to help you make all those decisions. And what I'd like for everyone to do, please, throughout the whole presentation, if you have questions, you have comments, anything you need to know, you want to get started, here's our information. I'll put it up on the screen and just let us know. Reach out to us. More than happy to help you out. Okay? So moving along here, what we want to do today, we want to just basically get through everything, make sure you kind of give you an overview. There's going to be specific questions you may have. And again, write them down, get them over to us. Today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about renting versus owning, bonus to buying, how to assess and plan things, what are the emotional reasons, the mental reasons for doing it, financially, how it affects you, what you need to take in consideration. And then we're going to go over to home buyer roadmap and then give our info again so that you can ask those questions later on. So starting off, renting versus buying, there is a huge difference between the two. And as we know, it affects you and your family emotionally, mentally, and financially. You want to be able to assess things, plan it out. And Chris, you've been doing this. How long have you been in the business now for, Chris?
17 years.
You had to think about it, huh?
I had to think about it for 2 seconds. I was like, wait, is it 18, 17? It's 17 now. It's literally 2006 I started. Yep.
Awesome. So we've done it a time or two. When you talk with your clients, what usually do you find is a major reason why they're looking to buy their home?
I mean, it's different. Depends on where they are in their lifetime, where they're right now in their life, you know what I mean? If they're younger, then it's like, oh, I just want to move out of my parents' house, or, I've been renting for 4 or 5 years. I would need to move out of that. It's weird because when I first started, the rule was you buy a townhouse, you get rid of the townhouse, you buy a bigger house, and then you buy your final house. That was kind of the thing.
Yeah.
But nowadays, things have moved. Like, people don't really buy townhouses anymore. And I shouldn't say they don't, but younger generation is now buying bigger houses right off the bat, and they go and they're
almost
buying,
like their permanent home. You're saying,
it's kind of a permanent home until the family expands. You know what I mean? Once the family expands, then they go to that third, which will be the second house, but they go to the third house, which they used to do in the past. But I see that a lot more, and I mean, it all depends on when in your life. Some people, they graduate school and they want something small, 2-3 bedroom. I bought my first house. I bought a little 1-bedroom condo when I was like 19 years old. That's how I started. And then bigger house. The bigger the house, the more stuff you have in the house. But, some people downsize. The older generation goes, we got a big house. Yeah. Everyone's moved out. We're now empty nesters. So what do? We get a smaller house. So, I see that a lot. So, yep.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's thing. And I'm glad you brought up those different scenarios, because that's something that you want to take in consideration. What's your why? Why are you purchasing the home? And like I see, and especially in our area, what have you seen in rents? And I want to throw that question. What have you seen with rents in the last, 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use Northeast. There's certain parts of like Northeast Philly, if you're familiar with that. I remember, people buying a 3-bedroom, condo, or they would rent for $1,000, and a 3-bedroom row home, they would rent it for $1,000. I mean, now that same one is charging $1,600-$1,700. So what's happening is that rents have skyrocketed. The one thing the pandemic brought was that people were working from home, and then they go, if I'm working from home, I should just buy a house. I'm sitting here in an apartment. I'm spending a whole bunch of money on on somebody else's mortgage. So why not I just buy a house? Because I'm going to stay here pretty much 24/7. So let me buy a house. I'm spending all this money on rent because rent went up. I mean, rent went from, there were some people, their rents went from, say $1,200 to $1,700 overnight. And some people, the 1700s went to 2,700. I mean, it just happened like within a week, boom. Rents went way up, so that's kind of put people out in the market. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's big time. So then,
Yeah.
and I always
Oh
say,
yeah.
like, listen, you're paying all this money in rent, so why not just buy? Because it's pretty much the same, if
Why not
not
just get
less.
your own place?
Yeah. Yep.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's the thing. You want to figure out why you're buying and just make sure it makes sense.
Yeah.
A couple of
Yep.
things we want to do then too is what's that?
No, no, no. Go ahead. No, no, no. I agree.
Yeah.
It's a lot of times the renting versus the buying, and I get it. Like it's a hard decision to make, but financially, you got to do what's best for you. If renting is best for you, then go for it. Like Joe and I,
Yeah.
we're never going to
Absolutely.
stop you from saying, "Oh,
Yeah.
put a big stop sign and say, don't rent, don't rent." If that's what works
Yeah.
for your family, then go go for it.
Yeah.
But to
That's what
me,
you
it's
do.
like it just financially makes so much more sense to buy. It
Oh
just
yeah.
does.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, and that's the thing what we want to do is we want to prepare everyone, it's so that you're asking those questions and figuring out the why. And
Yep.
then when it comes to the financial part of it, just making sure like on our part, especially as a lender, I want to be able to prepare you with things like your credit. And you're looking at the screen here, credit, your monthly survival number, how much does it cost you each month? How much cash you have saved up, your income, your debt to income ratios. And we're gonna talk about those couple of different things here. And one of the first things when it comes to purchasing that you want to take in consideration is your credit score. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail, but basically with it, remember there's 5 different things that make up your credit score: your credit, your new credit that you have, types of credit used, your length of your credit history, the amounts owed, and the payment history. And I want to focus in on that amounts owed part. When you have, let's say you have a credit card that's let's just say $1,000 limit, and you owe $900 against that credit card, guess what's going to do? Right, Chris? It drops it right down.
Yes. So
Yeah.
so what's the sweet number? Like, and I love that. I love the scenario you talk about. If there's a
Yeah.
$1,000 credit limit and I owe 900,
Sure.
what's the sweet number for me as a buyer?
The answer is always going to be the lower or the less you owe against it, the better, but not
Okay.
zero.
Okay.
The
So
less
zero.
you owe against it, the better, but not zero. You definitely don't want to be over. Once we start going over 50%, then
Okay.
you're going to start seeing it negatively impact your credit score. And see, it's one of those things where the jury's kind of out. The credit bureaus don't really tell you that number.
No.
But I've found personally, my experience is when you have you owe less than 30% or less than 10%, it can affect it a little bit, but never zero. When it's zero, then it could negatively affect you or negate the effects on the credit report.
See, this is why I as a buyer go nuts, because, and I get this from buyers all the time. Like, I paid off my credit card. I don't owe anything on my credit card, and my credit score is still only 590. And I have to explain that. Well, that's a problem. And people have a hard time wrapping their heads around that. Like, wait a minute, I have 2 credit cards. They both have 0 balances. You're telling me that's the problem, right? I mean, it's so basically what you're saying, Joe.
That could affect you. It could be a
Right,
negative.
right.
It could be, or it could negate. You could negate the positive that account would have if you just owed $1 or $2 on it. Literally, you owe
in other words,
on it.
I need to have a small balance, like going forward. For me to boost my credit score, I need to have a small balance going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Good question. Real good question. And keep in mind, when it comes to your credit score, obviously the higher the better. You want to be at least, if you want the best programs, the best rates, 740 plus. Once we get to below a 639, you're really going to be in a tough category.
Okay.
Can it be done? Yes, we can do it. Yes, you need a little bit more money down. Yes, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. Once you hit at least a 660 credit score, that's where a lot of the first-time homebuyer programs, those are the programs that are going to, then you'll be able to get more. You'll be able to get like your PHFAs. They have a 660 requirement for that first-time homebuyer help. When it comes to conventional loans, and we're gonna go through that in 2 screens from now, it's going to be the higher, obviously, the better. You want to be in a 700 plus. So we'll talk. I'm going to talk about that in a second, though.
So if I have a 580 credit score, and I got two credit cards, card payment, I'm paying rent, and I have a 580 credit score, what's the quickest way for me to get from 580 to 660?
Great question. Depends on your specific circumstances.
Okay.
It really depends. So let's say, and I'll give you an example, what we said before. Let's say you have your 2 credit cards, you said, right?
Right.
2 credit cards. Each credit card is close to its limit.
Okay.
Fastest way to pay those down. I had one client, I remember this a couple of years back, that he had several credit cards almost maxed out. Is about $10,000 worth of credit cards. His score was around a 560. We paid everything off.
Okay.
And it went from a 560 like between a 560 and 580. He actually went to over 700.
Nice. See?
And that was in just a short period of time. And he is maxed out on all of his credit cards.
Okay.
And they weren't real big credit cards. They weren't real big credit cards. He had I want to say it's like 6 accounts. And the total couldn't have been more than like 10 grand. He had the cash. He just didn't pay him off. Paid him off. Boom.
See?
So a lot of times that's gonna help. The other thing is, and this goes right to our next screen.
Okay.
Make sure you find any errors on your credit report.
Yes.
Yeah, that's real common. That's real common. I remember this going back a few years. It's crazy. I go to pull my credit. I'm getting a new mortgage. I had a couple of investment properties. I go to pull my credit report. And believe it or not, I sent in my check to the bank. They cashed my check. This is back when we used checks. They cashed my check for my mortgage. Yeah. That's a while back. They actually cashed my check for the mortgage, and they never reported it on my account. So I go to pull. When I pulled my credit, it showed a 6 times 30. I mean, I was 6 times for 6 months. I was 30 days late on my mortgage. And I pulled it up. I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. I have proof that I paid my mortgage. And they apologized. They corrected it. Right. But it took me a month or 2 to be able to get everything corrected. And that's the whole thing behind this. We want to be able to get your credit report as soon as possible. If you know you're purchasing, get it as early in the game as possible, because if there is an error, it's going to take us some time. Nowadays, we can usually get it corrected a lot quicker in a few weeks' time. Okay. But there could be things there. Yeah. Okay. So long way of that. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely. Love it.
Cool. All right. So moving on, your monthly survival number. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but bottom line, guys, know your numbers. Know how much you're spending for every single thing. Know what your budget is. And I love this. Like the one thing on there is like daycare. I know you know a thing or two about daycare. Crazy.
It's insane.
It's crazy.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, I know people. I have clients who, they have specifically told me we're holding off until our child starts school because we're paying $1,000, $1,200, $1,500. Some people are paying $1,800 for one child. So, and then if they have 2 or 3, it's like, I'm like, Lord, how much are you paying? So I see student loans here is a big thing, but I'm telling you, daycare. Yeah. Babysitting daycare is a huge part of your budget until your child starts going to school. And once that happens, then it's like, whoa, you got all this, I don't want to say free money. You
found a lot of money. A lot of money found.
A lot of money.
Exactly. All good. So if someone wants this sheet, send me a message. I'll send them this. Send them this form. More than happy.
It's kind of like in the old days when we were younger. We would go on the couch and find change. That's kind of how it is.
There you go.
Paying daycare, it's like, whoa, I found all this money.
Big difference. So when it comes to the mortgage products, and I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail in the next slide. You have your conventional mortgage, your FHA, VA, USDA, all these programs. There's going to be a difference in each one of them. Keep in mind, when you have the highest credit score, you have money to work with, we're going to put you into conventional programs. You have a couple bumps and bruises, we're going into FHA. If you are a veteran, yes, VA is hands down probably the best product out there, bar none. VA, there's so many benefits. You can you put 0 down, on these. And when it comes to USDA, you're in a rural area. Okay. So like our areas, you're out there, Collegeville, you're out down past Hatfield. All these different areas, they are, again, it's 0, it's rural housing. zero down. There's a website to be able to check where you're at. Go to USDA eligibility. USDA eligibility, you can see the areas.
Changed dramatically a little bit. When I started, I mean, that map was huge, and it's just getting smaller and smaller because the rural area. But go back real quick on the VA. What's that one form you need for that? What's the one form?
Your DD 214.
There you go.
DD 214. Yeah, your certificate of eligibility.
Yes,
you have your certificate of eligibility. That's one of the first things that we ask for. Yep. So make sure you have that ready. Easy to get it online.
You're right. You can get it on, but back in the day, you had to drive like wherever your main office was. I know somebody had to drive 2 states because that was the closest office he had, which was about 6 hours away. He had to drive to get his, DD 214 just to buy a house. But he made it happen.
Yeah. So keep in mind, you want to have that. You want to have that available. So So different programs. It really depends on where you're at, where you're physically located at, your circumstances. We'll make the recommendation and not include it on this slide. There is first-time homebuyer help. It's something that you have to talk to us about, or when we review your situation, we'll be able to offer it up. It could be something like a PHFA, where you get 5% of the purchase price toward your down payment and closing costs. Or like in Philly, there's a couple of different programs in which you can get, I believe it's they change it now, 10 or 15,000.
15,000. The Philly home buyer grant.
Yeah.
The Philly home buyer grant is 15,000 now. And what's one good thing about that, and I believe it's your income can actually be as high as 78,000, which is great. Yeah. The problem, as you know, Joe, a lot of these grant programs, like we'll give you all this money, but you can only make so much, which used to be not a lot. But the Philly home grant, I believe for one single individual, it's 78,000, and the more people that are in your household, the more money, the higher the income level goes up. I think if it's 3 people in your household, it goes all the way up to like 92,000, which is great.
Well, and I'm glad you said that, because actually, those of you who are in Philly and you're looking, there are certain areas where there's no limits. There's no income limits. There's no income restrictions.
See?
Yeah. So that's one of those things. That's where when we sit down, we talk and we ask, and one of the things I always ask is what area you're looking in.
Yep.
And that's so that we can also look at those programs, see what there's available.
Love it.
So good. Glad you brought that up. So, when you're going to buy your home, I'm always there are buy downs right now. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with this. Okay. It's something that it really just depends on your circumstances. You need a little bit more money, or you need a little bit lower of a payment. This is an option. Not going to go in detail, but this is an option for you out there. So again, going to those down payment assistance programs, there are a number of them out there. Some of them are grants. Some of them are zero interest loans, like PHFA, where it's forgiven 10% per year for 10 years. It's something that it really helps you get in there. If you're short cash, really can help you out a whole lot. So there are benefits to these. This is where you just need to communicate with us. You communicate with me, communicate with Chris, and then we can kind of help guide you. Yeah. So good deal. As far as your cash down, conventional minimum is going to be 3% down. Your government, your VAs, USDAs are going to be 0. FHA 3.5% down. If you're buying a jumbo home that's going to be over, 600,000, or technically it'd have to be a home that's going to be in the $700,000 range because of the money down. Typically, they're going to want at least 10% down for these. All right. All right. Moving on. One of the things that you want to keep in mind too. Tip. We get this all the time where someone comes in and says, well, listen, I know there's a program out there. I only need 3% down. 3% down is the amount you need for down payment. Does include closing costs. And closing costs can be hefty. It can be hefty. And we're talking about, like, for example, Philadelphia, when it comes to the transfer tax, just a transfer tax in Philly, it's going to be significantly higher than if it's going to be in like Montgomery County. Montgomery County is usually 1% buyer, 1% seller. Yep. But when it comes to Philly, I believe Philly's now 2 and
it's 2.14 for the buyer, and then 2.14 for the seller. Yep. Yeah. And sometimes
so it get pricey.
It gets very pricey. There's a big bill with that when you calculate your closing costs.
But the difference too is, and you tell me, Philly, a lot of times you're your
Lower tax.
taxes.
Yep.
Taxes
Yeah.
are low.
Yeah. I mean,
so it's kind of like that trade-off.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So
It's weird
just
because
depends on where you need to be. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I was looking at a property the other day, and I mean, their taxes were $7,000 in Philly. Then you go to the suburbs where you got 1% transfer tax and you got lower taxes than less than $5,000. You're kind of making out living in the suburbs. But it all depends on where you live. Yep.
Depends on where you live, and that's it. So when it comes to closing expenses, again, this is something we'll go over in detail to make sure you understand them. Not a big deal. We just got to make sure you understand what you need.
Yep.
When it comes to your income, this part I want to take just a little bit more time on, and just in explaining the detail. And it's simple. Do you have a consistent job history? Do you have a consistent earning history? That's it. If you're jumping around from job to job, it's going to be a little bit tougher for us to verify that income.
So let's say
your variable.
So let's say, like with the pandemic, for example, say I was out of work for months, right? And I started a new job. Do I still need to work 2 years?
No, here that's the thing. Good question. So we need to see what type of income you have.
Okay.
For example, let's say you have a job, your salary position, right? Salary position, make $100,000 a year, period. But to make it easy, $120 a year, period. You get $10,000 a month, period. Doesn't matter. We're using that.
Right.
But let's say now you have one job where this job was at X amount and this job is at another amount. And then you had a variable income. That's a great question, because variable income, there's a number of guideline changes from November to about February of this year. There's probably 5-6 changes, and this can affect a lot. So we want to be sure. If you have a salary, easy. If you had multiple jobs, that's where we really need to see those details.
Okay.
When it comes to if you're self-employed, we're going to ask for your 1040s. If you have an S corp or C corp, we're going to ask for those 1120s. We're going to ask for your K1 statements. So we're going to ask for those. And in certain programs like FHA, we're going to want to see that you have a P&L, a year-to-date P&L. So there's a couple of different things. It just depends on what you're looking for. It really depends on what your circumstances are. Yeah, It's a good question. Real good question. When it comes to your debt to income ratio, now I have on the screen, I have it showing 43% for all your debts. Typically, we can go up to 45% on a number of programs, 50% on the majority of them.
Okay.
There are some that will go up to all the way up to 55% of your gross income. So to make it real easy, you earn $10,000 a month, $4,500 can go out the door in all of your expenses between your home, car, student loans, etc. Everything that's on and we're looking at what's on your credit report. Okay. We're not looking at, for example, you have child care. We're not looking at child care. We're going to look at the things that you're obligated, the debts that you're obligated on your credit report. Nice. Child care, you could stop at any time. It's not on your credit report, at least not to my knowledge. I've never seen it on your credit report. So, but that's what we're looking at. If it's on your credit report,
what about medical bills?
Medical bills, great question. Medical bills, if you're saying like a medical collection?
Yeah. Listen, I had a big time surgery, and I got an outstanding bill of $21,000, which I can't pay right now. So they send me to collections.
Yep. So it's going to collections. When it comes to specifically medical bills, that's where, and it's going to depend on sometimes it's going to depend on the size, but we don't take them into consideration. We're not going to take them into consideration, especially like on an FHA program. We're not looking at that. Now, if it's another type of collection aside from medical, that's where we're going to take it into consideration. That's where you have to look at that and say, okay, we may have to pay these off or get to some kind of agreement. But medical collections, it's not going to be as much of a concern. Obviously, it can affect your credit score. So that's where it's going to affect you. Yeah. Cool. Good question. When it comes to keeping your debt to income ratio, we want to keep that as low as humanly possible. So, advice, please. When it comes to you have you see that you're driving by the dealership and see that nice shiny new car, okay? Don't do it. You want to make sure you have your priorities straight. And I have it all. I've had it so many times. I'm sure you've seen it as well.
Yeah, especially my favorite is always, and you and I had this one time. where
Yeah.
we were 3 weeks from settlement, and the wife
Yeah.
decided to open up a Best Buy card, and she went and spent $2,000 on new TVs. 3 weeks before
Don't,
settlement. I
please.
remember that. That was
Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah, don't do it. We're gonna cover those do's and don'ts in a minute. Yeah, don't do it, please. Please don't do it. When it comes, so just so you know, when it comes to your moving on to the next section, when it comes to your monthly payment, we're gonna make sure that everything's included. PITI, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, everything's included in the monthly payment. We want to make sure your taxes are escrowed so that you have one payment. You don't have to worry about anything else. Okay, so real simple. Real simple. I'm going to move on from that. That's it. Now, when it comes to the other part, the home buyer roadmap, we're going to talk to you about the different steps. And the first step is always going to be know who's involved. Me as your loan officer, Chris as your real estate agent. We're going to take care of everyone else. So when you look at this screen here, the appraiser, we as a bank order the appraisal. When it comes to, if you need an attorney, that's where Chris can get involved. You'll definitely need a title insurance company, a title company. Chris will make a great recommendation. He has some great ones here in the area. Same thing with home inspector. That's where Chris is going to help you with that. Make sure there's no issues with the home. And then when it comes to the home insurance, you can talk to who has your car insurance currently, or both Chris and I, we have different people that will make a recommendation.
Yeah, usually what we do now is, as soon as a buyer goes on the contract, gets a house, gets their offer accepted, we usually send out an email with a vendor list. And there's usually home inspectors on there, home insurance agents, like actually insurance brokers that kind of shop you around so you get the best prices. And there's other people on there like electricians, the handyman, contractors, and electricians and stuff like that on there. So we always make sure we do that. As soon as you go on the contract, boom, we send you a vendor list because that way it gives you an opportunity to shop around and do what you have to do.
Yeah, exactly. Good deal. So one of the first things that happens always, inevitably, when someone goes to purchase a home, first call is usually Chris. Chris, what are you going to turn around and tell them to do?
To call you.
That's it. And the reason is we need to figure out what you're qualified for. What you can actually buy. You can't look at homes if you don't know your numbers. And that's where we're going to come in. We're going to first, when you fill out that app, we're going to do what's called a pre-qual. We're taking all of your information verbally, or if you put in your application online, we're going to look at everything, pull your credit, make sure everything looks good there. That's pre-qual. Pre-approval is what Chris is going to need for him to be able to submit an offer. Pre-approval, we collected your W-2s, your pay stubs, all of your documentation that we need. We pulled your credit, we reviewed it, and everything looks good. You can move forward. This is very, very important. If you don't submit those documents, we're not getting a pre-approval.
Yeah, this is what happens all the time. Like I get the phone call. Hey, Chris, I'm interested in such and such house and blah 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 blah. And oh, that's a beautiful house. Is that what you're looking for? Yep, that's exactly what I'm looking for. And I always go. My main question is always, how are you going to pay for it? And they go, I don't know.
I don't know. That's the first thing you want to know.
Right. And then my follow-up question is like, well, are you using cash or are you using a mortgage? And most people say I'm using a mortgage. All right. Then my next question is always, who have you talked to, a loan officer yet? And they go, nope. So, and then it's kind of like, I got to break your heart a little bit, because then you love this house, which is great, but you don't have any money to buy it. So that's why, then I have to unfortunately go, you got to talk to Joe. Then I send them to Joe, and then obviously Joe sends them back to me. Then we go look at the house. That's usually what happens.
Yeah, exactly. So just keep in mind, guys, and that's great. No, listen, call either of us to be able to start the process, but it's always going to start with knowing your numbers. After you know your numbers, and we have that pre-approval, this is going to help you determine what your budget is, what price range you're going to be. Then also, you're going to avoid any setbacks. You're going to save time, especially when we get all of those documents. We're going to ask you for everything, send everything in so that we can review it. And so when Chris goes to put in that offer, he knows that you're not wasting your time, because it's something that you can get qualified for.
Yes.
So once we have that, and the listing agents, first thing they always ask, what's the first thing listing agents always ask you?
Where's the money? It's the old show me the money. I mean, I
Yeah.
can't put an offer in. If I could put an offer in, but if I'm not able to show how you're buying the house, see, instead of
Correct.
Pennsylvania, you have to be ready, able, and willing to buy the house. All right, you're willing to
Correct.
buy it, you're ready to buy it, but are you able to
Yeah.
buy it? And if you don't meet those three criteria right off the bat, your offer means nothing. Your offer is just, I hate to
Right.
say it, but a worthless piece of paper. It means absolutely
Yep.
nothing. The seller's not even going to take 2 minutes to look at your offer, no matter how great it is, because there's no money backing up the offer.
Correct. Right. And it's funny. The listing agents, a lot of times, they even take it a step further. They'll actually call us.
Yep.
And so Chris puts in that offer, and they'll actually give us a call. Hey, are these people really pre-approved? Do you have all their documents?
Yeah.
And so we have a couple of strategies in place already so that we can prevent those questions from even coming across our desk, and making sure that we answer them in advance and give you the best chance to win that bid when you put it in. And I'm going to talk about that in a second, when it comes to putting in the offer, the part that Chris is going to take. But before that, a couple of things. Keep in mind, these are the things that we need. Real simple. Last 2 pay stubs, and to cover basically pay stubs that cover 1 month, tax returns 2 years, or your 1040s, W-2s, 1099s. Sometimes we don't need tax returns. If you're self-employed, 100%, or a subcontractor, 100%, I need 1040s. If you have a C Corp, an S Corp, 100%, I'm going to need your 1120s as well as your K1s. Bank statements, last 2 months worth of asset statements. If you're getting money from a 401k, that's fine as well. Copy of your photo ID, and we're going to obviously check your credit report. Okay. So now once we get the pre-approval, we're all set. This is where Chris jumps in here. Chris, you want to take them through these two? You're finding the home, making the offer?
Yes. So basically, the first thing we do is it's kind of like, like a buyer one-on-one. We sit down and we talk, quick Zoom call, quick phone call. We might meet over coffee, just talk about what we're looking for. I always talk about the needs and the wants. You have all these needs, you have all these wants, but you got to figure out what's important to you. I need a 3-bedroom. Okay. Why do you need a 3-bedroom house? Well, because of this reason why. I would love a 4-bedroom, but I really need a 3-bedroom. Okay. So we find the perfect house that has a 3-bedroom. Are we good to go? Yes. People want, I want a fireplace. Okay. Is that a need or a want? Those are the things I kind of go down step by step. Some people love a swimming pool. Some people don't. Personally, I don't like swimming pools. They're a lot of work. They're a lot of money. There's a lot of upkeep. There's constant upkeep. But some people are insistent. They want a swimming pool. So then it's like, all right, we got to find a house with a swimming pool or flat land where we can dig a swimming pool in. That's basically we sit down and talk about all the ins and outs of what you're looking for a home. Hardwood floors. Are you looking for a fixer-upper? Are you looking to do a little TLC, little elbow grease, little sweat equity? Are you looking just to move in ready? I see more and more people. There was a while there we were doing like everyone wanted to do a fixer-upper. Everyone.
Yeah.
Like, HGTV.
Absolutely.
Do-it-yourself projects. Everyone wanted a fixer-upper. We're kind of getting away from that because people realize it's a lot of work and it's a lot of money and it's time-consuming. So a lot more people are looking more for move-in ready. And then it's like, what's your taste? The good thing about buying a house is you can fix the carpet, you can fix the paint. But the layout of the house is much harder, much more expensive to fix. So that's very important. Find out what style houses. I really go deep in that. I set you up on an MLS search, multiple listing site. The reason being is because there's all these websites out there, but the problem with those websites, they don't always have the accurate information. They usually have the wrong price. They usually have the wrong taxes. They usually have, the house is under contract, but it doesn't show on the website. So they call me and say, I'm seeing this house. It's available. And I look on the MLS and it's like, no, we're under contract a week
gone.
So we make sure, so I have you set up where you get that automatically. And then basically, we get together and we find hopefully 3, 4, 5, 6 houses and we start looking. Some people find a house right away. They go, this is it. This is my house. I'm buying it. Some people it takes a while. My record is 54 houses. Don't ever break that record.
A lot of houses.
I showed a family 54 houses. I'll never forget them. And it was funny because they were really tall people. He was 6'2", and the wife was 5'10", and they were the short people of the house in the whole family. Like the dad was 6'4" and up. And the dad was in a wheelchair. So now I had to find a house that only had 3 steps going into the front door. And then they needed a big kitchen and a big living room, and they had to be together. So it literally took 54 houses. Don't ever break that record.
Wow.
But once we find the house, then we make the offer. And this is where you come in, Joe. When we make the offer, we put all the paperwork in. I call the listing agent and say, hey, what's a great, what is your seller looking for? When are they looking to settle? Are they looking at a time frame? What are they looking to do? Do they need to do a rent back? Do they want to leave furniture? What can I do to make life easier for your client, Mr. Listing or Mrs. Listing Agent? And they usually tell me, say, hey, this is what we're looking for. And then we submit an offer. And we always make sure when we submit our offer that Joe is part of the offer, so that Joe can reach out to the listing agent and say, hey, these are great buyers. They're amazing buyers. I'm going to close them however quickly you need me to close them. And once we do that, then we submit our offer. Hopefully we get our offer accepted. Now from there,
wait a second. Once you submit the offer, don't they always get the home though?
No. Nowadays,
that's what you get all the time. They're supposed to, aren't they? Aren't they supposed to automatically get every home they put the offer in on?
I will tell you, it's funny, in this Montgomery County, Bucks County, and Delaware County, the listings have gone down. Inventory has gone down. But unfortunately, the buyers are still up there. There's still a lot of buyers out there. So there's definitely, especially in Montgomery and Bucks County, there are not enough houses for buyers right now. I will tell you, Philadelphia County,
a lot of competition.
It's a lot of competition. Now, Philadelphia, the market is down 25%, but there's still a lot of listings, and there's still not enough buyers. So Philadelphia County is turning. It's becoming more of a buyer's market. Montgomery County is still a seller's market. So your offer has to be very competitive. Now, there's certain things we can do to make the offer competitive, but, that's something we would have a discussion about. We can do this. We can do that. So we just got to keep an eye on, make sure we put a competitive offer. Unfortunately, in Montgomery and Bucks County, the asking price is usually the starting point. It's not the end point. So you have to think about that when you make an offer.
Going above that asking price is what you're saying.
So buyer, where is your end point? You have to tell me what your end point is, because I could tell you what mine is. It's probably not what yours is, but Joe and I always make sure that you're not house poor. So you got to tell me what your end point is, that to make that competitive offer to get accepted. Absolutely. And once we get an offer accepted, then we talk about inspections and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Good deal. Thanks. So and that's the thing. Once you get the offer accepted, that's where you're going to come back to me. We're going to do the formal mortgage application. We're going to get that done. And there's a couple of things we definitely want you to do, and we definitely do not want you to do.
These are the golden rules.
Yes, these are the golden rules. Thank you. Any changes in your employment, your comp, let me know. Make sure you continue paying everything. Yeah, exactly. No, make sure you pay everything on time. Keep paper trails of any money that you move. Notify us of any changes, and notify us of any travel plans. In other words, you're buying a home.
Let me know.
Let us know. And if you're going on vacation,
we just had that where somebody went on vacation and didn't tell me. It didn't tell anybody. Like, oh, we're going on vacation. I found out because we had a little bit of an issue. I had to reach out to them, and they go, well, we're actually in a different state. I'm like, wait, what? Oh. We went on vacation.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
That's all right.
We'll work it out. We'll work it out. We'll work it out. But you just let us know so that we can be aware of these things, And a couple of things that we definitely don't want you to do. Please don't quit your job. Don't quit your job. Don't co-sign for anybody. Well, my brother came and asked me, or my son came and asked me, my daughter came and asked me to co-sign. Please don't do it after the closing.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want.
Once I give you those keys,
before closing.
Once I give you those keys, you can quit your job. Do whatever.
You do whatever you want. You do whatever you want here. Don't transition. Also, I've had it happen where some they get a great opportunity. Now they open their own business.
Yep.
You do not want to go from your current employer to self-employed. You don't want to apply for any new credit cards. Like we talked about earlier. It went out. We had the best one I had, or let me rephrase that. The most challenging we had one client go out and buy, and this is years ago, bought $50,000 worth of furniture the week before settlement.
Yes.
Had to return it all. Don't do that. Don't max out credit cards. No cash deposits. If you have cash on hand, that's fine. We'll tell you how to work that out. But we don't want you depositing that cash on one lump sum. It can create some issues.
So you say to me, if I buy a scratch off ticket and I win $5,000, I should wait?
I want to see the scratch off ticket. Take a picture of it. Take a picture of your receipts. As long as I can confirm where the money's coming from.
Right.
If I can confirm it and it makes sense, we can work it out.
All right.
But that's where it is. You want to make sure you have receipts and know where it's coming from. Yeah. Good deal. Couple of things then. We're going to be going into underwriting and appraisal. We're going to make sure we go through everything, make sure the loan is investment grade. And we're going to be able to then give you your final approval and clear to close. A couple of things that we're going to be doing ahead of time. Chris mentioned these. And Chris, I don't know if you want to take them through. These home inspection and home appraisal. There is a difference.
Huge difference between the two, especially when it comes to FHA mortgages. So anytime you buy a house, most likely unless you're an investor, where you don't care the condition of the house, as long as the house is standing, you'll most likely then won't do a home inspection. But now, if you're just a regular buyer, you're most likely going to do a home inspection. And the home inspector basically goes in, checks out everything. He or she, the home inspector can't see, they don't have x-ray vision, so they can't see what's behind the walls. And they're not moving any walls to see anything. But they basically start from top to bottom, more from bottom to top. Some of the home inspectors I have, they usually start in the basement. Because that's where everything is, your electrical, your HVAC,
your systems,
any system in there, and they check all the systems, and then they kind of work themselves up. Check the kitchen, the first floor, second floor. If there's an attic, they go in there and look at everything in the attic, and then they obviously check the roof too, to make sure what kind of condition it is. And then they put a report together. They usually take pictures, and then you usually get a report. The bigger the house, I always say, the bigger the house, the possibility of bigger the problems. So you have to keep that in mind. If you're buying a $5,000 square foot house, there's a good possibility you might have a lot of problems, or not, compared to a 1,200 square foot house. Mm-hmm. You have an opportunity where maybe the problems aren't that big. But either way, by the time the inspection is done, there will then be a huge report, and then we sit down and we talk about that and figure out what our next steps are. Now, the home appraisal is different, especially the FHA. Now, the FHA, which is the appraiser, comes out and he uses basically like FHA goggles. Like, he looks at different things: chip paint, railings in the basement, railings to the second floor, broken windows. He's looking at the overall condition of the house, and that's kind of where the appraiser comes in. Now, if it's just a regular conventional, then he looks at the value of the home. Have you updated the bathroom? Do you have a finished basement? Have you updated the kitchen? And then he takes a percentage and adds that to see that if the price that we're buying the house for, that's really worth it. It's basically a third-party individual looking at the house and saying, all right, your house is worth this much, or your house is not worth this much, and this is the reason why. That's kind of the big difference between the two.
Yeah. And keep in mind, when it comes to FHA, the big thing is they're looking at safety items.
Yeah.
Whereas conventional isn't going to be as concerned with certain things like Chris mentioned, chipped and peeling paint. They are getting a little bit more stringent lately.
Yep.
They are looking at some little safety items, but it's not going to be to the level that FHA is going to be, where it's a standard. Hey, we need to make sure, like windows opening and closing, those sort of things, where conventional won't go into as much detail. So good deal. Good deal. So closing costs, we're going to go over those with you when you talk to us. And, there's going to be a lot of questions that you do have after this fact. When you go through this, you may have a question here or there. Please, by all means, make sure all of our information's on the screen here. We'll see, depending where we post this, we'll have links to our contact information as well.
Absolutely.
Bottom line, reach out to us. Reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Ask a lot of questions. That way, you make sure that you understand what you're doing. We notice that the clients that ask the most questions are typically going to be your happiest clients. Good deal.
Awesome.
Good deal. A lot of information. Thank you so much, Chris. Appreciate you coming on today and helping answer those questions.
Absolutely.
And listen, guys, we look forward to hearing from you all. All right.
Woo.